Good morning. Welcome to the Shirl and Shirley Show. Today, I'm pleased to have a guest that I'm very excited about. And this is someone who I've met and spent a little bit of time with. And I'm really thrilled about it. As you all know, my heart is in the 7th District. It always has been. So today's guest is Paul Wassgren. He is running for the 7th Congressional District seat that Tom Tiffany is leaving to run for governor. Welcome to the show, Paul. Thank you.
Shirl, thanks for having me on your show.
Yeah, I'm excited about this. I really want you to just kind of start talking about who you are, where you're from, where you grew up, talk about why you love the Northland.
Well, I am a fifth-generation native of Ashland, Wisconsin. I was born and raised here in the 7th Congressional District. My grandparents, as you may know, own the Mountain Valley Cheese Factory in Bayfield County. I do love the Northland. This is home, always will be home. And I had what I call a magical childhood in the 1980s, the golden Reagan years, growing up there on Chapel Avenue in Ashland, Wisconsin. In the shadow of the great Victorian era, we lived in an old Victorian home that had been built by a state senator, Clarence Lamoureux, in the 1890s. As I like to say, we didn't lock our doors and we walked by ourselves to school. It was a pretty magical time in the Northland.
Yeah, it was. I'm from the Hayward area. Talk a lot about in the Hayward at Ashland is like, I don't know, it's just right next door, basically. Even though it's 55 miles away from each other, that's kind of how it is in the Northland. We're so spread out. And tell me, in that area, the 7th District, how many counties does that encompass? Because I know it's a very large area.
Well, you're certainly right about that, Shirl. The 7th Congressional District of Wisconsin is the largest east of the Mississippi and certainly in the top 10 nationally. And that includes at-large districts like Alaska and Wyoming. So imagine it includes all or some of 26 different counties in northern Wisconsin. And geographically, it represents about 30% of northern and western Wisconsin. So indeed, it is a very large district. I can assure you that it is a big district as I've been putting on thousands of miles over the last several months.
That's what I've heard. I've heard you've been just about everywhere. I've seen some of the information out there, which I think is great. Why don't you share with our audience on why you decided to run for Congress? We all know that the political scene in this world is really different now. We're looking for good people to stand up to represent us, and I think you're one of them.
Oh, well, thank you, Shirl. Yeah, I think that is an important question to ask and answer before you dive into public office at any level, and certainly for what many people describe as the wood chipper of the House of Representatives. And I am getting into this knowing full well what it involves. Many of my friends are now or have been in the House, and so I've been adequately cautioned by those in the hot seat. Nonetheless, despite the hazards of the profession, I'm doing this, Shirl, to help the Northland. I certainly don't need the salary. I don't need a job. I've had a career. I've made my money. But as I travel throughout the 26 counties of our beautiful 7th District, I see economic decline, and that saddens me. I also see the social problems associated with economic decline. We were talking about the golden 1980s, that beautiful decade of Ronald Reagan and George Bush, and of course, Tommy Thompson and so many other greats in conservative politics. Well, that golden era is no more. Somehow the American dream has become very elusive. So when I drive through our wonderful congressional district, including and especially places like my hometown of Ashland, I see evidence of social decline driven by economic issues. So we have homelessness, drug addiction, violent crime. Those are words we did not know when I was at Wilmarth Elementary School in the 1980s. So that's really driving my decision. And not only can I spot the issues, right? Anybody can do that. But I also feel like I'm well positioned to dive in and fix some of those issues, at least at the federal level. And a lot of the issues that we could talk about in the Northland require input at both the federal level and the state level. And that's why it's important that we send fierce advocates, not only to DC, but to Madison to address policy issues.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And yes, I really do care about the whole area, and I care about the state of Wisconsin because, of course, I live here in central Wisconsin. And it is very frustrating when we have the hard left, the progressive left. Obviously, you know that they're in Congress. I mean, they're very deeply in there. There's the squad, as they've been called for years, and I don't think they're calling them that so much anymore. One of them got pushed out. It's very interesting to see how the speaker is dealing with it and how close we are, the margin. So we really can't lose the district you're running in. So it's really important to have a good candidate that's standing up for those values and for our values in the Northern Land. And I appreciate that greatly.
Well, so let me jump in, Shirl, on that because you've touched on a very important point. And before I do, let me thank you for all the important work you've done for Wisconsin. I know you've been in the state a long time and you've done great things for the 7th District, including serving as a county chair, which can also be a thankless job at times. But I wanted to jump in with an important point. You talked about the razor-thin majority that the Republican Party holds currently in the House. And that obviously obviously is a focal point as we look at the 2026 elections. Some people take for granted that the 7th of Wisconsin is a conservative and safe district. I want to take no such assumption. I think it's terribly critical that we roll up our sleeves and assume we're running from behind. We desperately need a strong advocate and a strong nominee, because it is certainly possible that the Democrats could prevail in any one of our congressional districts that we might consider safe. 26, of course, is an election year in which Donald Trump's name will not appear on the ballot. Election turnout can be a little bit light. That could have an adverse impact on us. So I think it's important for you and for all of us to roll up our sleeves and get the vote out. I also wanted to mention this, Cheryl. About 2 weeks ago, I had the pleasure and the honor of jumping on a Zoom call with a few folks, including a friend of mine who's up for re-election in one of the Michigan districts, Tom Barrett, terrific guy. We need to get him back in D.C. He's doing good work. But the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, was on that call and made some very important points. He is cautiously optimistic that we, the GOP, can maintain that control. But he did indicate it's going to take a lot of hard work, most importantly, a lot of money.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. Yeah, we need to make sure we hit on that. Do you want to mention how people can donate to your campaign right now? And then we'll mention it at the end too. It's really important for people to find out more about you. To give your website right now and give how to donate, and then we can go through that again before we end.
Well, happily, yeah. No, we would appreciate any support, financial or otherwise. My campaign website is simply www.paulwassgren.com. And folks can go on there and not only learn a little bit more about me, but if they'd like to make a campaign contribution, they can certainly do so as well.
Good. That's a great thing. I noticed that you had on there where they can mail checks too, because a lot of people still in the 7th mail checks, which that's just a normal thing for a lot of people. A lot of us go online and donate. And so that's a good thing to know. And it is all on there. And also if they want to sign up for helping your campaign or anything else, and just to be in contact with you, which I think is a great thing. I know something about you that when we first met, we had a very good conversation about was the opportunity zones. I think that is so interesting. And I know I reached out to a couple people to tell them about that and to get you in contact with them because we wanted to talk about those opportunity zones. To me, in the 7th district, that is just a huge compliment to that and to what you're doing, your campaign. And I think you should really hit on that hard. So maybe you can explain a little bit about what opportunity zones are, because I think a lot of people don't know that. I didn't until you started, educating me. I sent it on to a couple of people that are developing in other areas. And I think that's great. It's a great plus to have.
I agree with you, Cheryl. To evidence how serious I am about opportunity zones, I'm speaking to you today from a qualified opportunity zone project right here in the 7th district within Wausau. You had a chance to visit here and take a look.
Beautiful.
It's a big, beautiful project, as the president might say. The result of not only great federal policy, which I'll get into, but also the hard work of the developers. So this is a project built by Terrence Wall at T-Wall Enterprises in partnership with several other investor groups from the greater Wausau area. And this is a good example of exactly what we can do when the federal government gets it right. So not only do we need good federal and state policy to attract investment capital to the communities that need that shot in the arm, but we also need the entrepreneurs like Terrence Wall to jump in and take full advantage of those programs and actually roll up the sleeves and get the work done, right? So this is an example of a mixed-use project. His team has created 147 new residential units in addition to office space. The plan is to double this. In another 2 years, they're planning to launch phase 2. So far, I think they've invested, or we'll use round numbers, I believe it was a $50 million project for phase 1. So let's just use a round number. At the end of this project, he will have invested $100 million in downtown Wausau.
Wow.
That is a terrific example of how we can use the Qualified Opportunity Zone program to revitalize the economy in the Northland. Well, let me go into a little detail too, because what is the program? So the QOZ program, as we call it for short, was a creation of the 2017 tax reforms that President Trump signed into law. And believe it or not, once in a while, the Republicans and the Democrats can work together. And this is one of those rare circumstances in which both parties crossed the aisle and supported something that is good for the nation, right? It's not only good for Wisconsin, but it's good for every other state. So there was support from both Democrats and Republicans in the Senate and in the House. And eventually, Qualified Opportunity Zone program sprang into life through the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017. And that was a great program for me as a partner at a giant law firm. So I was representing a number of clients throughout the country, and many of them seized the opportunity to use that federal policy to invest in projects and communities that need them. I would say this too, that it is up to the governor in each jurisdiction to designate the census tracts, which then qualify as QOZ zones and will attract that investment capital. So that's why it's important we put Tom Tiffany in the governor's seat. There's going to be a very important duty for the next governor of Wisconsin to designate those census tracts. And we want a real focus on northern Wisconsin, specifically the 7th district that desperately needs this economic revitalization. And I know that Tom Tiffany will do a great job with his team in so designating those census tracts.
Well, and being the former congressional seat holder in that area, I'm sure his heart is into it too, because he's from there and been there. That building that I went through with you on the tour was amazing. I mean, it has a movie theater, it has a fitness area, the outside area. I mean, obviously it was during cold times, so I didn't really get to see much of that. Absolutely gorgeous. I think people are really going to enjoy that for many years to come. That was huge. Now, what did that building used to be?
So this site used to be a mall that had fallen into disuse. I think they got down to just a handful of stores. And so the city fathers decided that maybe it was time to revitalize. And so the Opportunity Zone program came along at exactly the right moment. They knocked down the old mall and put up this big, beautiful project. And so it's created a lot of housing for folks of all ages. But I've noticed that some of the folks who are using the residential pieces of this building are elderly who want to move out of their homes and no longer shovel their driveways and mow their lawns. My immediate neighbor here in this project is a retired priest, Father Bill, who's terrific. And as I said, there is office space. So this is a terrific example of what the government can do when they get it right. And we send fierce advocates to Washington who know how this should work, right? That's the key. We desperately need people who are informed by business experience as well as perhaps a legal background.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that too. Where it's located too, right downtown Wausau. I mean, it's a beautiful area and you can just walk down to a coffee shop or to have lunch or dinner or whatever in a lot of those really beautiful areas. So I enjoyed it very much. And I think it's really exactly what many of these communities need. I mean, when I look at Ashland and I go down Main Street, I was kind of heartbroken a little bit since I've lived up there. It's changed, and it's kind of sad. You see some of the buildings that aren't there anymore or that are not operating like they used to. It breaks my heart. It's everywhere, all over up there. I drove all over around there, through Butternut, through all these areas. I think this is something that could really be a key that could help the 7th District. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show too, so you could talk a little bit about opportunity zones and let people know exactly what it's about. And I do know that you will be a fierce voice for the 7th District in Congress when you're elected. I appreciate everything that you're doing right now. Well, one of the things too is, what's an issue, a key issue for you besides opportunity zones? Obviously, we've hit on that. But what's a key issue if you're elected to Congress that you would start off with Speaker Johnson?
Well, economic revitalization is probably the top issue in the Northland. We just desperately need to attract investment capital so we have factories and jobs and opportunities to keep young people here. But the flip side of that economic coin, Cheryl, is affordability. We have right now an aging population in the 7th Congressional District. A lot of people are retired. They're living on a fixed income. They're very concerned about Social Security and other benefits. And when I look at affordability, I used to say that the second largest line item in a household budget was insurance. I think for a lot of households now, it is the top line item, even more than the rent and the mortgage. And so I've looked at that. I've spoken with some of our state officials as well. And one of the reasons that our insurance costs have driven so high over the last decade or so, because of the litigation system in America. Not only does our litigation system tolerate, it encourages frivolous litigation. And some of my friends who have worked in the insurance industry have assured me in some markets, as many as 90 cents out of every dollar of revenue that come into insurance companies through premiums will be paid out in legal costs or settlement. Can you imagine? If we can roll up our sleeves and actually take legal reform seriously, we can go a long way toward addressing these affordability issues. And in recent conversations, as you were saying, I've traveled over the district now. I've gotten to speak with a lot of folks. In one instance, a household of 4, husband, wife, and 2 children, told me that their monthly premium just for health insurance is now over $2,200 a month. So that's why I say that's generally a lot more than mortgage or the rent payment for a typical Wisconsin family of 4. In addition to healthcare coverage, a lot of people have to pay for a homeowner's policy or a rental policy. Maybe small business owners are paying for general commercial liability, which has really gone through the roof. And of course, car insurance. So who's benefiting from that corrupt system? Well, the contingency fee lawyers who just like to sue everybody, see what sticks, and shake down a quick settlement from the insurance company. And the insurance companies are economically rational. They, in turn, will just say, well, let's throw some pennies on the dollar to settle this thing and make it go away. So the system desperately needs reform. And again, I'm the guy who can not only identify the issue, but I also have a solution. For more than 20 years, I've been advising corporations as a corporate attorney and fending off this sort of frivolity, as I'll call it. Not to say that there aren't legitimate cases. There are, of course, legitimate cases, and they're not easy to bring because the court systems are bogged down down with all the frivolous claims that lack merit. But as I like to say, in any other English-speaking country in the world, if I sue someone and I lose, I have to reimburse them their costs and their legal fees. That is not true in America. And if it were true, we would see far fewer frivolous cases brought. And again, the insurance policy premiums would start to decline as a result of that type of reform. So day one, I'm going to focus on that. If folks in Wisconsin deem it fit, and I would love the honor to be sent to Washington to be our fierce advocate, day one, I will seek through my friends' help there to get on the Judiciary Committee, get to work. It's not going to be an overnight solution, but there's some very concrete things we can do to reform our legal system to address the issues that we just highlighted.
Yeah, I don't think anything is really works fast in Congress, unfortunately. I wish it did. A lot of people do. Frustrating to citizens out here who sometimes sit back and watch that and see their premiums going up and seeing all of that. Right now, people feel the pinch of everything, really. One of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, too, was we know that there's an opponent in this primary that is 25 years old and recently made comments that age and experience no longer matters in politics. I am a fierce advocate against that. I think obviously I'm an older person. I've been around a long time, like you had stated, and many people know that. I just wanted to know what your thoughts were on that. It's kind of, to me, as a person, it's offensive, honestly. But I just kind of wonder, as a candidate running against someone who's a lot younger, 25, and nothing against anyone running. First of all, let me say this. Anyone who puts their name on a ballot has my respect to a degree. It is not an easy thing to do anymore, especially. And to run for Congress is very difficult. The amount of money that you have to raise, the amount of money that you have to spend, seems appalling, is what it seems like to me. I'm just a normal Jane out here. With that in mind, think about how you would address that issue of someone stating at 25 years old that age and experience no longer matter in politics.
Well, first of all, I like Michael. I've had a chance to meet him. I think he's terrific. I don't think there's a lot of ideological difference between any of us who are in this primary, right? This is a primary, so we're all Republicans, we're all conservatives, we all support the president and so on and so forth. So if we're going to try to distinguish amongst ourselves, I think age and experience are probably the key drivers. And like you, Cheryl, I feel that age and experience are extremely relevant, not only in politics, but frankly in anything in life, right? If I go to the doctor and I need to hire a surgeon to perform some life-saving operation, am I going to pick some young guy with no experience? That probably wouldn't be my first pick. And the same thing in my profession, right? As a lawyer, and we've had to hire lawyers, of course, and often I've hired lawyers for mutual clients. I am looking at age and experience in every instance, right? We're not going to hire the youngest person in the room. So I would disagree with that statement that Michael had made. And I think it's terribly important when we pick an advocate, whether we're going to court or we're going to Washington to do our bidding, that we look at folks and see what sort of experience they've had. And I don't mean just, we'll call it traditional education, right? It's certainly true that I went to law school and business school, and I have all these wonderful little academic degrees to hang on the wall, which are required if you want to become a lawyer, of course. More importantly, the school of hard knocks, right? I can remember when I was 25, finishing up business school and law school, I thought I knew everything, thought I could conquer the world. And the truth is, looking back on it now, and I'm 49, so that was a while ago for me. Looking back on it, I really didn't know much, right? I was just entering the school of hard knocks, as my grandfather called it. And that's where we really learn how life works and how businesses work. In addition to advising people through my many years of experience as a corporate attorney, Cheryl, I've had the benefit and the burden of starting businesses. I've owned some or all of at least 8 or 9 different businesses over the course of, say, the last 15 years, some more successful than others. And the truth is, you learn more from the failures than you do from the successes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's a long-winded answer to your short question.
No, I don't think it was really short. I think it's a very good answer to the question. And I think it is something that needs to be hit on. And I have nothing against anyone either. I really don't. None of them. I mean, like I said, anyone who puts their name on a ballot earns respect from me because it is a tough gig anymore. But I just think when you're 25, it's a hard spot to start is running for Congress in the 7th District. And I want to make sure that, you're paying taxes in the 7th District. That's one of my points too, by the way. It's like at least pay taxes in the 7th District.
Well, you'll be happy to know, Cheryl, I have paid income taxes in at least 18 or 19 different states, including many states where I've never even not only not lived, but I've probably never even traveled there, which of our tax system.
Well, one of my things too on that is property taxes. I mean, I know you've paid property taxes in the 7th District for years. So it's one of those things that really means something to people who live here. I think it's really important. If you are elected to Congress, I know you see this because you're going around, but what do you think are the challenges? I mean, we talked a little bit about some of them, the health, and what are the real challenges that are facing northern Wisconsin in the 7th District especially? Because it is different. Every district is different, Wisconsin. I find that very fascinating. And the 7th and the 3rd are a lot alike. The 7th is a standalone. It is so large, number one. So it has so many different, I mean, when you look at Superior as a larger city, you look at Ashland. Ashland's what, the second? Oh, maybe not the second. Hudson, those kind of areas. And when you look at those cities, they have different issues compared to what the rural area is. And obviously, internet, broadband is one that's really large. We can't even do this unless you're in a place where you have good internet and I have good internet, which is fascinating to me in 2025, almost 2026.
Well, as the saying used to be, welcome to Wisconsin, set your clocks back 20 years. And that's not so true anymore. We've been faster to adopt new technologies and new things than we used to be. But I take your point, Cheryl. I think that northern Wisconsin, being rural, and that's why it's such a big congressional district, has and faces certain unique needs, right? And one of the best examples of that, which came up in the news over the last week, was the good work that Tom Tiffany's doing to delist the gray wolf. I suspect, as he has talked to his esteemed and learned colleagues in the House of Representatives, especially those big city folks, they probably look at him like he's from Mars, right? Nonetheless, it's an important issue. And if you're not out there meeting and greeting folks throughout our beautiful district, you won't know that. Now, I happen to come from the Northland, and Ashland and Bayfield counties, we've known about this wolf problem for quite some time. Most of the folks in my family are avid hunters, and the wolf population has impacted the deer population, especially in the counties I just mentioned, but throughout the district. That's a good example of one really unique issue for the Northland. By no means is it the only issue. We touched already on economic revitalization, which is in desperate need throughout the Northland, but especially those counties along Highway 2. And then affordability, which I think is a national issue, especially after the Biden economic disaster. But we do have other issues. Folks, you touched on, just as an example, you touched on property taxes. Well, who in Wisconsin is happy about the level of tax they're paying on real property assessments right now? Not many. Over the last few weeks, people have become increasingly irritated with that. And with our current governor, who seems to be looking to increase those rates as long as he can.
400 years to be exact.
A little bit longer than 400 years. Yeah. Good luck with that. I think on day one, Tom Tiffany will fix that. Nonetheless, so that's a state issue, obviously, but it impacts the overall quality of life for folks in the Northland. And so by no means am I going to dismiss that simply because I'm seeking federal office. In addition, there are some issues like education, which many people would be quick to dismiss more as a state issue. I see it as both a federal and a state issue. At the federal level, we're trying to minimize, possibly even eradicate the Department of Education. It came up about 40 years ago, and I think we can all agree over those 40 years, the federal Department of Education has not contributed to the success of public education in America. They have overseen its decline. When, again, I was a student in Wisconsin public schools in Ashland County, they were pretty good. Our test scores were good. That is not true anymore. And so we have to bring as much of that money back from Washington and deal with it effectively at the state level. So again, we need intelligent, informed people, both at the federal and the state level, to fix some of these issues. And in addition to all of that, Tom has talked about energy, which is, again, both a federal and a state issue. I think in Ashland, I think you've spent some time in there, sure. A lot of folks will know Ashland. They're burning sawdust to generate power, and it's neither clean nor efficient. So we have to go into a little bit of an analysis of our infrastructure, and that includes the energy infrastructure in order to attract certain key industries, right? We have and could do well with legacy industries, the timber industry, for example. And I learned recently from one of our constituents that there may be some possible mining opportunities with regard to rare earth elements, and that's very exciting. Nonetheless, if we want to attract data centers and some of the new economy type opportunities, we're going to have to fix our infrastructure, at least with regard to energy production.
Yeah, and internet as well. All right, now we talked about a whole lot of serious stuff here now, Paul. Now I want to know, what's some of your favorite things to do in Ashland area where you grew up? You know that you're not just there winter now, summertime, time. There's boating, and obviously the bay is a beautiful area. I love going up there and walking along there, and I love going kayaking. It's one of my favorite things to do. Kind of wonder, what is one of your favorite or some of your favorite things that come back to you when you're in the area and enjoying it?
Well, you mentioned boating. That's certainly top of list, whether it's the big lake, as we call it, Lake Superior, or one of the inlets. That's always something that I just love doing. I've grown up boating. My grandfather always had a boat, and no matter what the weather, we'd be out there in the summer, life jackets on, sometimes wishing we weren't on the boat, but it was a lot of fun. So we still do that whenever possible. I also grew up shooting. I just love shooting. That's been a lifelong sport for me. As you may know, I was a very serious student of history and loved the American Civil War. So I happen to have 2 Civil War era cannons. I don't think any
That's
people.
cool. Cannons. I mean, think about that, people. Paul has cannons. How cool is that?
Well,
Go
that's
ahead.
one way to distinguish between the candidates in this election. I'm probably the only guy with men's childhood, but there are a lot of ways to enjoy the great outdoors in the North. In the summer too, Ashland specifically converted some of the old rail lines into a wonderful bike path. I don't know if you've tried that, but I often go out with my father or other members of the family, and it's a great bit of exercise on a nice day up there.
Just recently, I saw the ore dock again, seeing what they're doing there. And there's just so much history up there. And there was a place up there, but they used to get the big logs off of the bottom of the lake, and they made these items out of it. And these logs were like over 100 years old. That was one of the coolest places. I have a cutting board from there that I've had for multi-years. I think that's very interesting. And there's a lot of history in the area. Ashland, Bayfield area, it's a beautiful area. It's a great place to visit people. Please, if you get a chance, do that, because it is a wonderful area that we know about the 7th. It's a very touristy oriented kind of place, as well as hospitality. There's a lot of good people that work in that industry too. And we met at a coffee shop up there that was really, honestly, very nice and has a beautiful view of the lake, which people should enjoy when they stop in Ashland. Wanted to find out a couple of, some of the things. We also talked a little bit about your diet. I hope it's getting better, Paul. As a candidate, we all know.
Well, I appreciate that. And I have to visit your supper club down in Stevens Point. But we do have some great spots around the Northland. I know you're aware of this, but I just love going down to Garmisch on.
Oh yeah, Christmas time is a beautiful time to go to Garmisch. They do the best in the lights and the show. It's just gorgeous, and their food is delicious. You can't beat it.
Well, I happen to like German food, and in the Northland, that's one of your best options. We also really love the old Voyager restaurant just between Washburn and Bayfield. It's now called the Good Time Restaurant, so that's hard to get a table, but the food is well worth the wait.
They weren't open when I was there, or I would have been hitting that, and that's part of it. And then the Big Top Chautauqua, everyone knows about that place too. That's a big name place up in the area. And that's the thing. There's so much to offer in the Northland. The ice caves, when it's really cold. And then also in the summer, the caves you can kayak in and all. It's an absolutely gorgeous area.
You mentioned Chautauqua. That's come up in the course of my life. Even before that, of course, I grew up skiing Ashko Bay, as we called it. Fun memories there. Yes.
Yeah, it's a great place. While I was up there, I did get to go on a little hike down to Lake Superior, which was absolutely beautiful during that time. And that was wonderful too. There's a lot of hiking areas, Copper State Falls. You cannot beat some of the areas that are up there in the Northland.
Well, that's right. Like you said, Shirley, you went hiking on Houghton Falls, was it?
Yeah, it was Houghton Falls. Yeah, it was beautiful. A lot of outdoor activities up north. Take your families out, people. Get away from the computers, get away from the TV, get away from the phones, go for a walk, put your feet in the grass,
Maybe that's why I like the 1980s. We didn't have iPhones back then.
No, we didn't. Thank you so much for stepping up, because I know how hard that is. It's hard on yourself. It's hard on your family. It's just a tough gig to run. I appreciate the fact that you're putting yourself out there, put your name out there. People attack. People are vicious. You need to understand that there's a whole lot of people that are supportive as well. Anyone, like I said, who puts their name on a ballot. I admire the fact that you're doing it. I thank you very much for doing it. And I really thank you for standing up for the 7th District. As you know, it's very close in my heart, and it always will be. And I do care about that area an awful lot.
Well, it's my pleasure to run and hopefully to serve on behalf of all of us in the 7th Congressional District. And, frankly, I can't think of a better way to use my skills than to help folks in Wisconsin. As I said, this is home and always will be. So it's my pleasure to jump into the race.
I think it feels like a passion to you. That's what it seems like to me. I'm going to end this on one other thing that you had some dealings in the first administration of President Trump. So where are you at with President Trump, and are you supporting his agenda?
I am. Yeah, I think anybody running in our district is and will be. I think he's done a terrific job of sealing the border and reversing some of the economic policies that had led to inflation and affordability problems, including and especially by restoring the energy policy from the first Trump administration. But to address that, I was a partner at a very large global law firm during the first term. And as a result of the Qualified Opportunity Zone program coming into life, I became a bit of an expert on that. I would travel around the country and lecture on it. I was on TV lecturing about it and speaking about it and promoting it. And as an advocate, I was approached by some of Trump's appointees, specifically from HUD, who were overseeing the project, and they really wanted me to continue promoting that program, and that's exactly what I did. Toward the end of the first Trump administration, I gave them some good constructive feedback on what we should do to improve and enhance the program. And a lot of those ideas have now been baked into the Big Beautiful Bill as it has.
Nice.
So that act makes Qualified Opportunity Zone program itself permanent, in addition to adding some additional benefits for rural districts, including and especially the 7th District of Wisconsin. I'm very happy to have participated in that process, and I'm happy to aid the president and his team in continuing to do that good work that will not only help revitalize northern Wisconsin, but other pockets of the United States which desperately need that economic shot in the arm.
That's great. That's fantastic. I think I've taken a whole lot of your time. I want to end by saying thank you so much. Also to say, people, please go to his website, www.paulwassgren.com. Check him out. Maybe you can find it in your heart and pocketbook. I know it's the holiday season, but to donate something to Paul's campaign, he has to keep on rolling. That's how we do it. And the finance reports are coming here due soon by the end of the year. So it's always good to show that the district is supporting him as well. So even small donations, people don't realize how much that adds up. So we are grateful for all of that. And I'm grateful for Paul coming on my show today, being willing to open up and to let people know about him and his personality, what he's all about, even his diet, all the way down to that. You got to chuckle every once in a while about stuff. So thank you, Paul. And I'll let you say something at the end here, and I'll wish people a good day and we can sign off.
Cheryl, thanks again for having me on the show. And to all of your listeners and to you, I will wish you a very Merry Christmas.
Very good. Thank you so much, Paul. You have a great day, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you all. Please make sure that you go to his website, www.paulwassgren.com, and that is spelled Wassgren, his last name. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them for me. You know I like it, and I'm on every podcast hosting site out there. Just check me out. Cheryl and Shirley Show, signing off. Have a great day.